Guys, what's up, and welcome back to the Marvelous Chats podcast. This is episode 111. Tonight on the cast, we're going to be talking about Ahsoka episode 5. It's myself, Finto, and Alex, aka Zaberwolf. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video, and leave us a comment below if you're watching a replay. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, just make sure you hit the follow button and turn on the notification bells. Let's go, dude. Without further ado, here we go. Alex,
Hey,
what's up,
buddy.
brother? How are
You know,
you?
it's funny. You sound like one of those late night or early morning talk show hosts. Like, welcome, good morning, and
I
I
felt
hope
good.
everyone's doing a great.
I felt good about that one.
No,
Thought it
no,
went
I
well.
like it. I like it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, it's like it's
No. I get it. I get it. I was calm and collected. Fuck
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. Yo, what's up to everybody who was chilling in the chat beforehand? Guys, if you're listening to this, we do these live on Sunday nights over on YouTube. So if you want to be part of the conversation, just pop on over and you can chat to us in the chat. Chilling. Andre, what's up, dudes? How are you? Yeah, look, how was the week this week, dude? I'm excited to talk about this episode. This was a big one for me.
Oh yeah,
This was a
well,
big one.
in terms of this week, just did a bunch of cleaning around the house. Got some work to do. Had a bunch of stuff, but like all in all, like great week so far. So, how about you?
Yeah, the week was fine. Work wasn't too strenuous, but I was happy for the work week to end and weekend. The weather, I think it rained all weekend here, so the rain didn't stop once, so didn't really do an awful lot. Just my sister was here. She went home this morning, so she was over last night. We got some food, watched a bit of the Barbie movie. Yeah, it was pretty awful, bro. I'm not gonna lie. The Barbie movie was not good. I did not
You
like
didn't like it?
No, I thought Gosling made me laugh a few times, but the movie was absolutely awful.
Dude, Gosling
Awful.
stole the show though, man. Like that, like just everything that was going on, like fantastic.
He was
I
very
think
good.
Margot Robbie did it. I think Margot Robbie did a good job, but
She did a pretty good job. I just didn't like the movie. I just thought it was stupid,
I think it
Like
was just it's one of those things where I'm pretty sure it's aware that it's trying to be like a bit too stilly.
yeah, it was too woke for me. It was
Was
kind
it
of
woke? It didn't feel
I,
woke. It didn't
it
feel
did
woke, dude.
it
What
did,
was
bro.
woke about it?
Everything, every single thing was
What?
woke about it.
What?
It was completely woke, bro. It was like
Literally.
Barbie. It's a Barbie world. It's the girls' world, and then Gosling goes to the real world, and then it's like a man's world, and like it was like tennis, bro, back and forth, and it was just it was
I don't
awful.
know, man.
And it was like finally at the very end of the movie, it's like we can coexist. It's great. Like it felt very woke to me. It just
I mean,
really
it's
did.
true. Like, dude, sometimes you got to feel enough.
Okay.
It's like that's the thing, man. Like you gotta feel for it. Like it's like everybody can coexist. Like that's a thing. It's not woke culture. There's a completely different stance on that kind of stuff. What you're considering woke is not within this movie. Like I completely understand what you're trying to like assume in the movie. I did not see it like one bit. It was just a
Yeah.
movie trying to be silly with itself, understanding that like Barbie has its own thing. There's many forms of Barbies. There's like all kinds of stuff you could do with Barbie. It's just Ken never really got excuse me, Ken never really got the spotlight. So that was kind of the whole point of it, is like, like to me it just didn't feel that way. Like it felt like it was pretty equal, to be honest. Like there was nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, I thought even just nah, I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest. But I genuinely felt it was a movie which was clearly made by women for women, and then when the man goes, he becomes a macho man, and it's all about like cowboys and you know the
But that's the
fucking
fun of it. That's the trope. Like, but it's like,
it's
but
not
it
funny
also
though.
shows the sensitivity of dudes, man. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
pretty
know.
sure there's moments in your life where you talk to your woman and you were like, man, I really love this movie. Do you want to watch this movie real quick? I want to just like explain things to you, or just kind of like enjoy this movie with you. And just kind of expressing yourself as like a person. You're just a person, dude. Like I don't care if you're a man or a woman, as long as you're an entertaining and happy person. Like I'm usually all for it.
Yeah, yeah. 4 out of 10 for Barbie for me, and
All right.
my missus gave it a 0 out of 10. She absolutely hated it,
Okay.
like to the core. Thought it was a disgrace of a film. So, yeah, I'm not alone here. Look, let's just get straight into the main reason why we're here. Ahsoka episode 5. I like. First of all, what did you think of the episode? Like, because again, I know you're not as much of a Star Wars nerd as I am, so I'm curious to see what you think. Give us an out of 10, and maybe tell me your favorite bits of it.
Honestly, I know most people love this episode. I give it like a 6. Like I'm not really feeling it right now, dude. Like I feel like it's pulling a lot of strings from different movies and just trying to collaborate and make its own thing. And it's just I don't like it. I just don't. I really don't. Like I'm not interested in it as much as I want to be. And I love all the lightsaber duels. I love all the like the introspective. I think that the Ahsoka and Anakin situation was kind of cool, but I think this got a little too woke for itself, to be honest, because it's like, oh, now she's the Messiah in this sense. Like, what kind of shit is this? Like, I don't like it because I understand that like we've seen this before in Lord of the Rings, and we've also seen the whole fucking orb thing with the map and everything from Treasure Island, or was it Treasure Planet or something like that. I can't, and it's just like I've seen this before. Like there's no originality to this whatsoever. We it's really hard. It's also really hard to make original things, and I get that, but it's like you're pulling on way too many strings. I don't like the theming. I don't think that this is like even like worthy of a story that I even care about. Like it just doesn't feel as good as it should be. Honestly, this should be a like this should be a 3 movie saga to really get me into this situation of like showing how much Ahsoka has really like grown as a Jedi and how much she's younger and she's able to like train someone or train multiple people and just kind of give that vibe of like, oh my god, like she could totally lead 3 movies. But like for it to be a TV show, it's kind of really undermining it and I'm not having fun with it, dude.
Yeah, yeah, that's your opinion. I like obviously don't feel the same. Obviously, being a massive prequel fan, and like I saw like all of Clone Wars and saw a lot of Rebels. I didn't see all of Rebels, but I did see. I think I saw the most important parts of Rebels. I think this like a lot of people have been describing this show as just Rebels season 5, and I think this week's episode kind of really went like again they went back for anyone who didn't see it. They literally went back to flashbacks from Clone Wars, which was mind blowing in my opinion. Like it was incredible. Like we've been wanting it for so long. Like us, like Star Wars prequel fans, like Star Wars, a lot of Star Wars fans, people who like all the anime, have been asking for this shit for years. There's been, I'm sure you can dig them up, but there's been like fan made like pictures of like Hayden Christensen in the Clone Wars armor. Like that's been going around for years. And like even the same with like Ewan McGregor. Like people have been just wanting this for so long. And for me, it's kind of like, oh my God, like they're listening to us, like finally they're giving us what we want. And like, I got to agree with Chillin in the chat. Like it was a 10 out of 10 for me. I would say honestly, like I can't. I'm trying. I tried to find like errors with the episode, and you know, like I think even I was talking about it in Discord, and Kijin, who's Kijin, like he's probably one of the most
Yeah.
critical people when it comes to content and stuff. Like even he said it was a 10 out of 10. He's like maybe 9 out of it, or like 9.8 out of 10. He's like if I had to like just try and like critique it a little bit, like I don't know. Like I'm curious, like, and I find it interesting to see what someone like yourself thinks of it because again you're not like a diehard Star Wars fan, so it doesn't mean the same thing to you when you see a young Ahsoka showing up and she's got the one lightsaber on the belt, and it's like basically they made a Clone Wars movie back in like 2008, and it was like kind of the introduction to the Clone Wars before they did the TV show, and it was like that's when you first saw Ahsoka when she first became the Padawan, and she had one little lightsaber and she was only like fucking 11 years old or whatever age she
Right.
was, but it's
Right.
like
I get that. I'm not disagreeing with you on the flashbacks. I think the flashbacks are fantastic. I think that like that whole sequence between Anakin and Ahsoka was fantastic. Like everything afterwards didn't really feel good to me. Like everything in between, like all around it, just
so
didn't feel.
The Ahsoka the White stuff,
Don't
like
care
where she
for
came
it.
back and
I don't care. Like I'd rather she be in her normal uniform and just looking like Ahsoka and not having looked like she's completely changed all of a sudden. Like I get it. I get it. She finished her training. I get
Yeah.
it. But like it doesn't speak to me the same way. It should just be a revelation. Nothing changes about her physically. Like you don't see any changes in clothing or anything. You just see that she changes her mindset and that she becomes stronger just by having gone through that flashback. But I understand it. Like people are dumb nowadays, and I'm sorry for people who are listening right now. Like this is literally one of those things where like when I watch shows with my girlfriend, it's literally like they're 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 feeding it to you like very slowly with a spoon and trying to get you to see it and trying to get you to take the spoonful of food because they think you're dumb. And I'm not dumb, dude. I can tell that Ahsoka has changed. I can tell that things have changed within her because of the fact that she had her flashback. So like it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't need visualization to be told that things are going to be done for the better for Ahsoka. That she's a changed person, and like it's all in the perspective of it, man. It like I understand with Gandalf, like with Gandalf when went from gray to white, that was a completely different change. That was something that he had to go through, and that he felt was like a needed change. With Ahsoka, it just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and it just felt like unnecessary.
Well, I think the reason why, and funny you bring up Gandalf because I find it's a complete kind of rip off of the whole Gandalf thing because it's she does go through, she has a lot of conflict, and that's the point of her finishing the
Right.
training. Like when you see Anakin talking to her and saying, when she brings up the comments about him going dark, like it's like none of us knew how powerful you were and how wrong it all could go. And Anakin looks at her like, oh, that's what's holding you back. Like that's what's, the conflict is. It's like, oh, you're pissed off because I became Vader. And she's basically like, well, yeah, like, like I'm the Padawan of the most evil person in the galaxy. And he's like, look, we're more than this. You need to let this stuff go. So it's kind of, she appears to be or feels to be lost because she's abandoned the Jedi, and then her master became Darth Vader. And he's like, you need to just forget about this shit. You're a warrior. You need to basically just do you. You know what I mean? Like just go be you, teach the way you want to teach. And I've ascended to more than just being Darth Vader. And that's like the beauty of Luke bringing him back to the light side. The famous last line, you were right about me, tell your sister you were right. And then he goes into the Force. Like there's been a lot of kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say confusion, but there's been a lot of different kind of interpretations of what the lesson was, which I've been finding interesting, kind of seeing different people's perspective on it online. um like I suppose the way I took it was, that's kind of my understanding of it was like, it's like, look, I have become more than Vader, or I was more than Vader. Don't get hung up on the dark side of it. you know Come back to balance. And that's kind of what happened with Anakin was the chosen one. The chosen one's job was to bring balance to the Force. Now if you go deeper into the kind of lore of Clone Wars, there's a whole arc in the Clone Wars series where he goes into the Force basically, and he meets the father, and the son of the Force is the dark side, and the daughter of the Force is the light side. And
Mhm.
basically, the father says, "You are the chosen one. Your job is to take my place and become the father." So, like, that's kind of, I think, what really is the story. But I think it's kind of up to interpretation. I've heard a couple of different things, and they all make sense. So I'm kind of
Right.
hoping that we at least, because it kind of feels like maybe Anakin is gone, the way at the end he disappears and you don't really see him again. I hope that we do see more of him. I hope they kind of, because there seems to be a lot of confusion in the fan base. So I kind of hope that they do kind of nail it down and tell us exactly what
Mhm.
the lesson was. Because as I said, there's a few different interpretations and they all make sense and they all sound great. So I'm kind of like, shit, I don't know which one is like properly correct. So it's a tough one. Like I saw a video, I'll see if I can pull it up, we can watch it maybe later on, and it kind of just, it's a beautiful kind of interpretation of like throwing the lightsaber down and stuff like that. And like, it's like Vader learns a lesson from Luke and now he's trying to teach that lesson to Ahsoka, and it's kind of full circle shit, like, and it sounds amazing. But I think Anakin as the father is the correct, uh I think that's what Filoni's getting at, because again, it was referenced so much in the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, so it makes the most sense. And again, I was only talking to my girlfriend about this beforehand. She was asking, "What's the podcast like about tonight?" And I was saying, like, we're going to talk about episode 5. Obviously, she's like, "Did that much happen?" And again, she knows nothing about Star Wars really. Like, she's only seen like the original 6 movies, and that's it. Like, she doesn't delve any deeper into comics or animation or anything. So I was kind of explaining to her the whole Mortis arc, and she was like, "Oh, what the hell?" She's like, "Where did all this come from?" And I was like, "This is in the animated series." And she's like, "Oh, well, obviously she hasn't seen any of that." So, and I like,
Right.
and I think they need to obviously go deeper into it to kind of explain that to people like her and people like yourself who maybe aren't the biggest fans. And maybe I think some of it has probably gone over the heads of a lot of people. You know, like for you to say that this is a 6 out of 10 episode, that kind of just tells me that you don't know the full story, and it's kind of like you're like there's pieces missing in the puzzle for you, you know what I mean? So it's like, and like again, like I was explaining that to my girlfriend there about 2 hours ago, and she was kind of like, whoa, that's actually crazy, you know? And it's like, yeah, it is, it's crazy, you know, like it's fucking amazing, like, you know. And it kind of, I've seen some people getting a little pissed off because they think it's, you know, it's Dave trying to retcon stuff because Dave's kind of famous for retcon and stuff. And it's
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like this is actually the way it was intended to be, because I've always thought it was kind of weird, you know, like Anakin basically killing himself and killing Palpatine technically isn't bringing the Force into balance, because if you leave Luke and Leia but no dark side users, that's not balance, you know. So I always
Right.
thought that that didn't make sense to me. Now, whereas if the prophecy is that he becomes the father, he is becoming balance itself. So it's like, okay, this actually makes more sense, you know?
Sure. Yeah,
So
and I know
that's what I
you've
think.
explained this to me multiple times,
Yeah.
and I totally understand your theory, and like I can see that from the perspective. And it's not so much that I'm saying that the story itself doesn't make sense or whatnot. I'm just saying the visualizations aren't there for me.
Mm,
Like making things obvious is not cool for me. Like I think that being very ambiguous about things and being very like mysterious is it's what one of the best things about Star Wars. Especially because when you're seeing Yoda in, you know, God, my brain just fried. Um,
I hate when that
uh,
happens.
in the Empire Strikes Back,
When he's
Yoda.
on Dagobah, when he's all
Yeah, when
old,
they're on
when he first meets
Dagobah
Luke.
with
Yeah, yeah,
Yoda, first meets
yeah,
Luke, very
yeah,
mysterious, very like wondrous, like very like it's one of those things where I'm like, this is really interesting shit. Like this is
yeah,
very it's informative, but it's also like hard to tell like what Yoda wants from Luke, other than the fact that like there's so many different things to teach Luke in such a short amount of time. And therefore like there's this whole perspective of how like Luke can't get over the fact that he needs to take time. He can't just forcefully do it. He can't just like push extremely fast into becoming a Jedi because then you'll fail.
yeah,
And you could see that because at the very end of The Empire Strikes Back, he loses his hand, he finds out that Vader is his father, and it's a fantastic moment because it's the realization that, "Oh my goodness, I'm thinking with my feelings too much. Like I'm pushing too hard into my feelings and not looking towards the future of wanting to finish my training in order to become strong enough to go up against people like my father and
yeah,
Palpatine." And so like it's that's how I see it. And so when I see Ahsoka, I'm like the flashbacks are perfect for that because it's like your training is technically finished. It's your mind that's not finished,
of
like with
course.
training. So like
Never
that's the
finished.
exactly. So like when it's over and when she's like, okay, I understand what I should do and what I should be because I could be anything. I could do whatever I want. I have no more limits. I have the ability to train and like motivate people the way that I want to motivate them. And so I don't need a visualization. So that's all I'm saying is like there it's the visualizations. I just need you to be like, okay, that's it. And then it's kind of like when um you see like someone come out of like a coma or some sort of trance, they come back and all of a sudden they're just like geniuses on the computer and they're like, I know what I need to do now. It's like one of those moments. Like, don't tell me that we're going to do something. Just do it and make me wonder like what you're going to do next. And so we already know that she's going to go straight for Sabine and probably they're probably going to run into Ezra and more than likely we're going to see Thrawn because we've seen like backdrops of him or not
Yeah,
backdrops like we've
he
seen
was
like
in
the
the
backdrops.
trailer. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So like we're going to see him and I'm excited for that. So like I'm not knocking the story. I'm just saying that the episode itself visually pissed me off. And but I also like the fact that the kid is is becoming force sensitive or is showing this force sensitivity because it shows how much like the world itself isn't just like, hey, this is just between Sabine and Ahsoka and Thrawn and Ezra and the fallen Jedi. Like it's also the people around and not understanding like or not seeing right away like holy shit, like we have
Yeah,
potential in others. And so that's what I'm saying. And so like so when he had that moment, it's like, Mom, can you hear it? And I was like, hear what? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and that was exciting because I'm like, the fuck, I've never heard of this before. Like, this is really interesting. Like someone
yeah,
being force sensitive, being able to hear lightsabers like clashing. And like you can actually kind of hear it within the waves, like you'd hear it, like it's so like so the sound effects were beautiful. The sound
yeah.
effects were just wondrous. Like, it was fantastic, and like, it was just amazing for that.
So
But
it's so funny you say that, dude, because that's the one part of the episode that I didn't like.
and you're fucked on that, dude, because I love that, because that is Star Wars. That is
Yeah,
100% Star Wars. Being
I
able
didn't
to
mind.
feel and hear things that no others can because you're force sensitive and your potential is so, like, it could be limitless. We don't know what kind of person you're gonna be. And so,
Yeah,
like,
I
for someone who is limited like Sabine, like, hold on, I'm sorry. Someone
how
who's
dare
like
you interrupt me?
I know. Someone like
Go on, go on.
Sabine who doesn't necessarily have potential like with force sensitivity is still showing a sort of side of her that's like, well, I'm part Mandalorian as well. So it's like it's kind of giving that give and take. It's like, well, there's potential in this person because they could still be trained. You could still train someone with the lightsaber, but like, what if? But the question now in my head is like, what if Sabine's not the person that's supposed to be trained by Ahsoka? What if it's supposed to be the kid? Like, but she was so focused on the fact that like she needed to train Sabine, and Sabine was like, Sabine needed to be ready to go, and Sabine needed help with this. Like, don't even see the kid. And so like
Yeah,
that's what I take from it. And
yeah.
so like I'm hoping that they kind of address that later on. As far as we know right now, the droid like I forgot the is
Hu
it
Yang,
Huye? Huyen?
Hu Yang.
Huyang? He
Yeah,
he really is kind of like an asshole. Like he'll be
I
like,
love him.
like yeah, and
He's so direct and everything, and I love that. I think he's a very and it's David Tennant doing the voice, and I think he's doing a fantastic job because I think he's being real direct, like saying to Sabine, like you're the worst Jedi I've ever seen, like you've got the lowest connection to the Force of any
yeah.
Padawan ever, And then he's like, will you make me when the kid's like, will you make me a lightsaber? And he's like,
He's
no.
like, no. And
Yeah, he's like,
that's what I really
that's your job. You have to make that. That's part of your training.
right. And
Yeah,
that's what I really liked about that. Like I think that the dynamic between that is like really good, and it's not just like just like a teen angst kind of shit, even though I'm an
yeah,
adult. Like it's literally the kid is wondering. Like it's the
yeah,
wonder behind the kid. That's the reason why the prequel is so good, man. Because
yeah.
like the first like episode one, like Anakin is so filled with wonder. He's like so enamored with the Jedi, and knowing that like he has potential is just amazing to him.
Yeah,
But like he
yeah,
still acts like a kid and he's like reckless and whatnot. So that's much more fun than Sabine. And so like I kind of want the kid to kind of have some spotlight later on.
he
But I know
will.
that
He will. They're building
I
him
hope
up.
so.
He's going to be big. He will be big. And I think
Good.
Andre hit it perfectly. I was just about to say this before you typed it in the chat, but Ezra will train him because his father was Ezra's master. So it only makes sense that Ezra will be his master. It's. I have a feeling. I think you're right though. Like Ahsoka could train him, but I think it would make more sense if it was Ezra. Now that's all going well if Ezra comes back or maybe the kid and Hera and everybody goes to the other world or the other universe, and that would kind of make sense as to where all of them were for the time that it doesn't. It kind of would
Right.
make sense if they all just disappeared and then went to a different world, and then we had a potential different universe or whatever. So yeah, look, I think I it really depends how the rest of this show's going to go. If they all come back, like if Ahsoka ends up magically finding them, magically saving them, bringing them back to the universe one or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
then I would say yes. Ezra has to train the kid, has to train him.
Right.
You know,
And I wouldn't be opposed to it being like almost like its own temple kind of situation where Ahsoka's the grandmaster. And then just kind of have that perspective of like, well, I know that we're saying that Ahsoka has already passed away in the sequel trilogy, but who knows if they like I know that they're going to do another thing with Rey. Well, like who knows what they're going to do with Ahsoka in the future? Like who like as far as we know, it could just be a force sensitive situation where like she spoke to her through the force. And look,
yeah,
because we still have
maybe.
so many different mysteries with the force.
Well, to go back to the Clone Wars again, the light, so the daughter, I believe she dies in the Clone Wars and her energy goes into Ahsoka. So Ahsoka could actually be like an embodiment of the light. So she
Like almost
could
immortal, right?
potentially, yeah, so she's kind of a god in her own sense. So it's like if they want to go crazy with it, they could actually make it so that she is the light side, and then she could potentially still be alive and maybe talking to Ray at the end of episode 9 through the Force, potentially, or from the other galaxy. Maybe they never come back. And
Yeah.
maybe she's just kind of talking to her through. Maybe Ahsoka can kind of bounce from the new galaxy to the world beyond worlds to the original. She can kind of maybe bounce back and forth. I don't know.
So
So
essentially like Scarlet Witch, like she's a Nexus being.
possibly, yeah. I don't know. Like, they could get really loopy with it, but and it could make sense. So I don't really know. I just want to go back real quick to just Angelina's comment here. She says, "I hope Ezra and Thrawn will appear in episode 6. They're definitely coming. I would be shocked if they hired or like cast somebody to play Ezra, and his only job in the show was to be that little hologram. That'd feel like such a waste to me. I feel like they have to give him some actual screen time. Like, I'd be shocked if they didn't. And
Right.
as well, sorry, another one of Angelina's comments. I'm not ignoring any of these comments. I'm reading everything, but I don't want to be interrupting Alex while he's talking when he's on his little flows. But yeah, this is a great comment as well. It's like I want to see Anakin and Luke get reunited. For me, my hopes for the show is that this is the last episode, and we see Anakin again, and maybe again, I don't know where the timeline, because the timelines in the show are a bit kind of funky. I don't know if maybe Ahsoka comes back to the main universe, and then maybe it makes sense as to why she's appearing to Sabine. Like maybe they do the time travel thing that we were talking about, where like she ends up being reappearing in like the regular timeline, but she is Ahsoka the White, and then it kind of makes more sense. It kind of feels like Dave retconned his own work. It's kind of weird because like his kind of creation of Ahsoka the White is just
Could
it's different to what he did in Rebels. So it's kind of strange. I don't know. Maybe they'll fill in that blank or they'll explain it. I hope they do. But for me, yes, I hope that we see Ahsoka meet back up with Luke, and I hope that Anakin pops in
can
as well, and then
can
we
can
have
we
an actual scene with Luke and Anakin talking to each other. Would be wild, bro.
can we stop saying
Wild.
Ahsoka the White? That's making me cringe, man. Like I don't want to
That's
think of her
that's
as Ahsoka the White. Like
that's what she
it's just
is.
Ahsoka, man. This isn't Lord of the Rings.
I know, but that's what people are calling her. So
Oh
get
God.
used to it. As he says, are you
Are
are you
you
not
done?
entertained? Maximus, welcome. Yeah, so like, look, I don't know, like just kind of talking, and again, I'm trying, like, I'll try and throw some critiques on the episode because nothing is perfect. But for me, I hated that Hera could hear the lightsabers in the waves and shit. I didn't like that she could listen into the world beyond worlds. Fair enough that the son, fair enough that he can. That's fine. He's a Jedi. That kind of makes sense. But again, at the same time, it doesn't. I can accept that, but the fact that it's like he's just like, "Hey, mom, listen, listen, like really listen, mom," and then she hears it. It's like turn the thing around. I don't know. Maybe she didn't hear anything, and she's just like listening to the son. I don't know. I hope that's what it was. But if she could just listen into a world between the fucking worlds, and it's like the Force, I find that to be kind of bullshit.
Right, but like you have to take it from this perspective as well, Finto. Like everybody in this world has some sort of connection to the Force, correct?
So they say, but again,
No, no,
George
no, no,
Lucas,
no, no, no.
George
So this,
Lucas,
so they
George
say.
Lucas said, George Lucas said that everyone has metachlorians in them. just as the same way as I can say to you that we can all be fucking martial artists, but you have to train. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, I am.
Like,
I did. I took some taekwondo. Like, I know a
so
little
did
bit.
I. So did I. But again, I'm not a
Sure.
black belt, and you're not a black belt.
No,
And
we're not.
if a black belt walked anywhere near you, I'm sure he'd kill you before you hit the ground. But like, that's the point I'm making. It's like
Right.
it's all down to training. Like, someone who's never trained in the Force at all, and most people in Star Wars don't even know what the Force is. Like, if you think of episodes 4, 5, and 6. Some people like even like Han Solo, like he's like, oh yeah, I've kind of heard of the Force before. It's like a kooky thing that like it's like wizardry or whatever. Like most people don't even know it at that stage. So
Right. But like,
if
if you
you
think
got to
about
think of
Han,
where
though,
you are. I know,
but
I
you got to
know.
think
Han's
like,
probably a bad example. I'm just saying he actually used the line in the movie, but you
right.
got to think of where the timeline is right now. So like, episodes 4, 5, and 6 have happened. The only Jedi in the universe is Luke. He's like the most feared person in Mando. Like when Giancarlo Esposito's character when he meets, I can't remember his name, when he meets him, like he shows visible fear when he hears that Luke is coming, like so it's like this dude is like he's the most feared person in the galaxy because no one understands, no one knows what the fucking Jedi are. They probably only heard stories and all. It's like, hang on, we've got one of these rocking around. So you got to think like now it's like there's not too many of them. Whereas back in like the prequel trilogy, they're everywhere. The capital, Coruscant, like they're walking around on the streets and all. Like it's like, geez, there's the Jedi there. Like they're like secret forces or whatever back then. But you got to think like where Ahsoka is now. Like Hera would have like pretty much. I don't know. Like maybe Hera is a bad example as well because obviously she went through the whole Rebels thing and she was interacting with Jedi, but like 99% of the fucking galaxy like has no interaction with the Force whatsoever. So like I find it bullshit that a random person, I suppose Hera isn't a random person, but like she doesn't train, she's never trained in the Force, she's never done anything,
As the kid,
has the ability to listen in on the fucking world beyond worlds.
right? But has the kid,
Well, the kid is half Jedi, like his father is a fucking Jedi, like so it's more in
right?
him than it would
Okay.
be in her, definitely. Unless
So,
he
so
has like unless his like magic spunk like makes her a Jedi. If he like blows a force load into her, like maybe she becomes
I
force
mean,
sensitive even more so.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
they did that with Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man apparently has radioactive jizz. So, like, I mean, like,
Maybe, maybe
but if you
clip
think,
it.
from the if you think from the perspective, though, it's like if you can like safely say like almost everyone has a set amount of midichlorians, if we're going to go through like the prequels and say that midichlorians are still a thing, um instead of the will of the Force, then we're saying that there is a slight amount of sensitivity that she might feel compared to, let's say, someone who doesn't care. You know what I mean? So like, it's she couldn't hear it. She really couldn't. And it's because of the kid kind of bringing it up that kind of gave her the like this feeling of like, okay, well, if I concentrate, maybe I can hear it.
Mm,
It's a completely different situation. If the kid had never said anything and he says, I can hear them and I can hear this, then I'm pretty sure we would be having a different conversation. But because of the fact that she's made aware of of her kids like concern, she decides to try to focus and listen at least a bit.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that she's not even a Jedi. She's not like force sensitive or anything. She just has the ability to like maybe sense a bit of the will of the Force in order to at least hear things, but in a very faint kind of voice, as opposed to the kid who's probably like listening to a fucking, like, he probably can see the goddamn thing like it's in a theater. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he could probably hear the clashing, like the sounds and everything that's going on, and he could probably even see who's doing it in at least in the form of silhouettes. Like like that's how much of a sensitive kind of kid I think he's going to be, is that
Mhm.
he's just got very good force sensitivity, and so therefore like he has potential, and that's the point of that part. It's not so much like, oh, Hera can kind of hear them. It's just like, mom, I need you to like just shut the fuck up and listen for a second.
Yeah.
And she does, and she's like, the fuck is this? Like, she still doesn't understand what that means.
Yeah.
And it like
I just don't think she should have been able to hear anything. But look, that's that again.
like
This is
how
me.
many people are you gonna how many
I've
people are you
just
gonna block, dude?
I've already said this is me nitpicking. This is me being very, very, very overly critical, just to try and find a chink in the armor, because
Right.
there is in everything. There is in everything. And another thing I didn't, again, I loved all the flashbacks, but the kind of like I went into like I always go into like a kind of overcritical view of things. Like, like I'd always do it with Marvel. Like, I'm looking at every bit of CGI, like, oh, that could have been better. This could have been better. And I found that, like, did you notice that in all the flashbacks, like you didn't really see anything? There was like no like proper backdrops. It was all just smoke and shit.
Yeah.
And it felt cheaply made. And that was like what I understand that, it's meant to be a vision and it's all smoky and
Right.
hard to kind of see and shit. But I was kind of like, oh, like, could they not have like put us in a set or a place that we know or something that like would have made it more impactful? Like, again, I think it was amazing. Of course, I think it was incredible. But like, if you do really think about it and really break it down, all we saw was a couple of stormtroopers running in a straight line, Anakin running in a straight line, Ahsoka trying to follow him, and then we shoot to the next scene and it's just people lying on a bench. Again, it's all smoke. There's no, you can't see anywhere. You don't know what planet they're on. You don't know where they are. And then we go again to the Mandalore scene, which was again explained to us where we were. But again, you don't see anything. You don't see any like shots of Mandalore at all. And if you think about it, they could have probably used some of the shots that they've already created of Mandalore from the Mandalorian, but they seemed like they just didn't even do any of that. It was just all smoke again. Again, I
Probably the
loved it.
cost.
I get it is the cost, but that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
real world shit not making it as good as it could be because they're trying to cut costs. That's the way I looked at it. And
Right.
again, it's just me being overcritical. I'm just like, I'm just again trying to find it. As I said, perfect 10 out of 10 for me. Maybe 9.9. If you seriously put those things into consideration, it would be a
I
9.9.
All I'm saying, dude, is like right after the realization or let's say the transformation of Ahsoka, it got real boring for me real quick. So, I am already aware that we're on our way. I think it should have had a little more enthusiasm with Ahsoka when she came to. I think that the show is missing a lot of this like enthusiasm and like emotion from it. Like we're really barely getting anything. Like when the flashbacks came around, that was great because we got some emotion. We got some like the kid Ahsoka had more emotion than anybody in the fucking show so far.
She did such a fantastic job. Did you
And I
know that
loved it.
did you know that she's the actress who played the young Gamora, and she played
Yeah.
she's in the Barbie movie as well. So like she's like doing like loads of fucking really good shit right now, and she is a great little actress. Like, so
Right.
I'd say we'll be seeing her a lot in the future as well. But she was fantastic, really really good, like
But other than
incredible.
that, like as soon as we left the flashback, it was like, all right, well, take us out. Let's go. We're on a journey. Let's go.
Yeah,
And it's like
I liked it. I don't really like the whales, but I think at the same time it's
Wales
like
was fucking dumb in my
it's
opinion.
the only way. It's the only way
It's
because
the
obviously
only
Balin destroyed the map, so it's not as if they can try and turn it back on and recreate it. Like, it's the only way that she's going to be able to get there. So I can imagine. I haven't spoke to Liam about it, but I'd say he was fucking punching his monitor watching that shit, like, because he hates the Purgle so much. Like, so
it's
I'd say
so
he was fucking raging watching it, like, which is hilarious to me. Like, hilarious to me. I just want to make a comment on this real quick. So this is a good comment from the chat. So, I've thought about the whole retconning of the sequels. I don't think Disney are going to do it, right? Liam's here, fuming. What's up, Liam? I didn't even need to talk to you. I knew exactly how you'd feel. But basically, yeah, sorry. So back to this. So it's like I'd just be happy if they retcon the sequels. This is for anyone listening. I'll read out the comment. And Luke awakens from a Force vision, almost like Yoda in the bata tank, and then the whole thing was just a vision. I would love this, right? And I've been thinking, even now with the introduction of a second universe, my mind's been spinning. Maybe Luke goes there with them, and then he comes back and he's had a whole experience. Maybe time works differently there. Maybe he goes to a second universe. We tell like his kind of extended universe story where he meets his wife, has a kid, blah blah blah, and then maybe all of them die, and then he comes back to the main timeline and he's just a devastated person. Like, that kind of makes sense to me. But then I think to myself at the same time, it's like, well, then when would he have built the Jedi Temple? When would he have trained Ben Solo? When would Ben turn into Kylo and destroy? The whole events of the sequel trilogy would have to change. And I just don't think, again, from a real world perspective, Disney are going to allow their the trilogy that they made, they're not going to allow that to be retconned because that's them admitting that it was shit. They'll never do that. They know it was shit. They know it didn't do well. Episode 7 made an incredible amount of money in the box office, so that's all they give a shit about is box office numbers. So if they're selling tickets and putting asses in seats, that's all they give a shit about. They don't care about the story. So like, to them it's a win because they made money. You know what I mean? They'll never turn back and say, actually, yeah, look, we wrote shit stories. They know they wrote shit stories.
Oh
There's no
yeah.
way they don't. But they're not going to turn around and retcon anything. I wish they would, but I don't think they will at all. I think our best case scenario, which I don't even think Dave would be allowed to do, like fully, would be for them to just go to this new universe and just go off on a different branch timeline and do like an Earth 2 situation, like they do in all the comic books, where they go and start telling stories from a different world. But I just don't even think that Disney will allow that. Like, because again, it just undermines everything that they've done. I just don't think
Mm,
that they'll allow it. You know, I just
right.
don't. I
And
like. Oh my god! Sorry, I just have to bring up this what Chillin said in the chat because again, I haven't this dude Prism on YouTube. I'll throw the links to the videos in the chat below for anybody who's watching us on a replay. This dude using AI has recreated and rewritten the sequel trilogy. I showed you a bit of this before, Alex. We've talked about it before. But he only just released episode 9 maybe last week or the week before. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It's like nearly an hour long. But I've watched episode 7 and 8 and they are mind blowing. Mind blowing. The stuff that they do, even just with Rey at the start when you first meet Rey, she's evil. Like she's a Sith. Like, and it makes sense because of her fucking grandfather is Palpatine. It makes sense that she would be evil and then maybe have a redemption when she meets Luke. But again, the reason why they didn't do that is because they didn't have any of this shit written. They went like Daisy Ridley has come out and said that they went into episode 9 and she still didn't know who she was. And the whole Palpatine thing was just fucking picked out of the air. So it's not as if they could have written that in episode 7. They didn't fucking know any of this shit going into episode 8 even. Like, and I think, there was always the rumors that she was maybe Obi-Wan's daughter and what was her name? Satine. That maybe Satine had a daughter or something like that, and Obi-Wan didn't
mm,
know about it or whatever the fuck. Anything else would have been better than what they did and the way that they did it. I like the whole story in the way Prism is telling it through AI and everything. I love this story. It's incredible, and this would be an amazing movie, or an amazing trilogy if they actually let it run out the way that it's being told like this. But again, they didn't write scripts for 3 movies. They wrote a script for one, which was basically the first ever Star Wars movie, kind of just retold and rejigged. It's basically the same story again. It made like $2.5 billion or whatever the fuck it made. So they were like, shit, let's make episode 8 and 9. And then, Ryan Johnson came in and ruined episode 8, in my opinion. And then episode 9 was JJ came in to try and rescue it after they knew 8 was a failure. JJ comes in, tries to write something, and then apparently they changed it. His final cut of the movie was completely different to what he actually saw. Like, he went to the premiere of the movie apparently, and the movie that he sat down and watched wasn't the movie that he submitted to Disney. So, like, what do you do, bro? The thing was in shambles after episode 7. Like, it really was. It was just in shambles, and there was nothing that they could have done to save it. But as I said, Prism, check him out on YouTube. Shout out, massive. It's incredible. It really
I
is.
I truly have to say, concerning J.J. Abrams, is that I don't know if you've ever really watched any of the newer episodes of South Park, but literally, it makes sense now that like when you're like saving it, and I'm like, okay, now I can understand why that episode of South Park where they wanted J.J. Abrams to fix the national anthem was a thing, is
Yeah,
because they think that J.J. Abrams can just save everything,
yeah.
and so
Well, that's
like
the thing. Like, it's like shit. He made us a lot of money for episode 7. People really liked episode 7. Let's get him back to save it. That's
and
exactly what it was.
the whole course of South Park was literally the member berries. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
remember Star Wars?
yeah.
Remember the Millennium Falcon?
That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. And like again, if you sit down and watch these Prism movies or like AI films or whatever you want to call them, if you sit down and watch them, like they just do so much justice for every single character. Like Luke is the Grandmaster. He gets the treatment that he should have gotten the beginning. Like Han Solo is like a general, and like it's incredible. It's so well done. They take like proper care of the original characters. And when you go and look at what Disney Star Wars did, they basically killed the entire OT straight away. Like they fucked Luke. They didn't do Leia justice. I'm sorry, and
No,
they
not at
kill
all.
they
Like it
they
was
kill
horrible.
Han in the first one. How the hell can you get all of these 3 people Like you get Harrison Ford back, you get Mark Hamill back, and you get Carrie Fisher back, and you don't even have one fucking scene with the three with all of them together. Like, how the
Right.
hell could how could they allow that? Like, that was shocking. Do you know what I mean? Like, they told Mark Hamill that like he had to lose like a crazy amount of weight to be in the movie and everything, like because he had put on a lot of weight. He's getting old, like that's what happens.
Right.
And they were like, you gotta look the part and everything. Like, you're coming back to Star Wars and all. Made him lose all this weight. Like, believe Kerry had to do the same thing. Harrison's always kind of in shape anyway. He's a fucking absolute beast. But like, how they didn't put the three of them in at least one scene together was absolutely shocking to me. Even a flashback or something, like maybe just before Luke runs away and hides on his fucking planet, which is actually Ireland. Hilarious. But it's like, how did they not even do one scene? It's so fucking ridiculous. Like,
I don't know, man.
ugh,
And I
makes
I
me
have a quick
angry.
question about this, by the way. So besides Ahsoka, and I would say, when's the last time we had a really good female villain?
Female villain in Star
Female
Wars or
villain,
just in general?
just in general, like through Disney.
Female villain through
The
Disney.
the only one I could think of is Hella.
Hella was cool.
Hella was sick. Like
Yeah.
she was a legit villain. And like seeing Shin is fucking
Jim
sick.
was cool.
She's fucking
Ventress.
sick.
Ventress in Star Wars
Ventress,
was good. She
yeah,
was good.
Ventress was fine.
Um,
Um,
this comment is wild. It's like some people are
oh
saying that
god,
Ray is
no.
actually Shmi Skywalker. Like
Like
there's
shit's
a
gonna
lot of
return.
there's rumors out there that Palpatine actually created Anakin. Like they did like an immaculate conception to Shmi. Like Palpatine actually planted Anakin in there, which is why they say there's no father. But then I think they've kind of just really I think with where this whole story is going now, they're kind of just confirming that maybe it was the father of the Force that actually created Anakin to take his place. So it's like he was created from the Force directly, not from Palpatine. But
Right.
Ray, I think they confirmed this in comic books. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but in the comic books, I believe they said that Palpatine was creating clones of himself and created a clone of himself, and one of his clones is actually Ray's father. So technically, I know they say she's like the granddaughter of Palpatine, but technically she's like a clone version of himself. So like technically it's Palpatine's daughter, I suppose. It's a clone's daughter. So Palpatine, like it's not really granddaughter. You can't say that. You can't say granddaughter really, because it would have to be Palpatine's son's daughter, you know?
It's
It's a weird one. It's a
it's
weird one,
really
but
weird, and
it
I don't
is.
even know if we should even get into it because we don't really care about the sequel trilogy.
No, I don't. I can't believe we're talking about it for so long, but it's
Well, because it really does matter. Like, because we've
no,
seen
it
all of
does.
the different good things about Star Wars, and
Yeah,
then we get the shit. And
true.
because Disney doesn't know how to say, yeah, we fucked up, they double down on their shit. And so, like, that's why we're getting this continuous, like, momentum of shit right now. Because
Yeah.
Disney doesn't know when to stop and to just take a step back and go, like, oh, Jesus Christ, we made a bunch of crap.
I don't like again, I'm just thinking about this now, but can you imagine what it's gonna be like in like say 20 years when it's like, there's another trilogy and maybe people will start to like the sequels more and blah blah blah. Like that's the way it will go that way. Everyone hated the prequels when they were first released if you were already over the age of 20. Um, the kids who watch the prequels and love them are like us. Like, I was one of those
Yeah.
kids. I loved those movies, and now it's like it's my turn to talk about it. I have the voice, like, so it's like, we're prequel fans, like there'll be sequel fans that'll come out and defend the sequels to the and maybe
Of course.
they'll all get their redemptions down the road. But it's like I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna say to myself, how the fuck were Disney allowed to be in charge for this long? Because if you think about it, they're not only fucking up Star Wars, they're fucking up Marvel severely as well. Like, so people are probably going to look back because, again, all of this is legacy, all of this is history. You know what I mean? Like, anyone who is new to either Star Wars or Marvel, they're going to come back and they're going to have to watch all the movies and they're going to have to sit through all the shit. And they're going to, like, I can imagine it now. Like, my daughter's going to turn to me someday and be like, Dad, like, why are all these movies so bad? Like, how are they so bad after we saw so many good things? And I'm just gonna have to be like, well, there was a lot of real world shit. There was people in charge who didn't make the right decisions. The right the correct riders weren't put in place, blah 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 blah. And it's like it's so sad to think about that because it's like you're letting these shitbags basically come in here and just like try and like just regurgitate shit because they know the IPs are just money making machines and just doing it the easiest way to try and make money. And it's fucking sickening. Like
Yeah.
it really
Oh yeah.
is.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things where it's the creative process, and people don't know when to just shut the fuck up and just go with source material, and it's
Yeah.
just it becomes very bothersome.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, man, I fucking hated the ending of the live action One Piece.
Oh wow. You didn't
Hated it.
like it?
Nope.
Did it they
Hated it.
shit all over
They
the
shit
ending?
all over. They shit all over everything because they like had this creative process of like, well, we want to speed things up or we want
Right.
to like do some skips here and there, and it's just not, it doesn't feel comfortable, dude. Like it doesn't feel like I'm not sitting there crying. Like, dude, you know me, I'm a sensitive fuck. Like
Hmm.
I love my One Piece. And all I wanted, all I really wanted was for there to be at least a good amount of like road to give, and to be like, all right, here you go. Here's all your emotional, here's all your like sensitive moments, here's all your like big scenes that you
Yeah.
should really take in because you've seen these in the anime before.
Mm.
And this is for you. Literally point, like literally the producer's going, this is for you, Alex. This is your shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just it just turns into like this weird situation where like I don't even, like Katie and I were sitting there, we're like, that's not what happened. Like that's not
So
what the fuck.
instead of jumping, did they just rewrite? So they didn't skip stuff, they actually rewrote, like, an
They s-
ending to an arc in the anime, did they? Because
they
again,
s-
I've never seen any of it, so I only can go by the live action.
so one of the biggest like cardinal sins of skipping this is the
Mhm.
fact that Garp went to see Luffy.
Yeah.
Garp doesn't see Luffy until like Water 7 after Enies Lobby. Like
Yeah, you
the
you said
whole
this to me you said this to me last week, and
right.
yeah.
The whole point of that is to kind of give this perspective for the character Luffy and his crew so that they're the focus of the journey until it turns out that more of the world like more of the world is open to the fact that like Luffy has a lineage.
Mhm.
Like you don't know this. Like you don't understand that like Luffy has like a father who's a revolutionary and a grandfather who's a vice admiral.
Mhm.
And you find that out late into the show, like about I think episode 320 something,
Mhm.
because it's not important until it gets really like important to the fact that like the Navy needs to take down Luffy. The Navy shouldn't give a single fuck about Luffy right now.
Yeah.
Not one little bit. The Navy barely knows who Luffy is as they go about because they're starting to like draw up his wanted poster. We don't see Luffy's wanted poster until after Arlong Park, which is apparent when we see that. So
Yeah.
for the fact that we have Garp wanting to go after Luffy is such a fucking like it takes a huge shit on the fact that like Luffy isn't known until later. Like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a thing of like, oh my god.
So does he not get in the anime, does he not get his, like, big bounty until, like, way later on?
No, he gets his bounty right after Arlong Park.
Okay.
Like, because Arlong is the first like known villain to be
Mhm.
taken down,
Yeah.
and because that like mouse, I forgot his name, like I think it's like Neko, not Neko, like Nozumi. He's like he goes back to the Navy because he was there when Arlong Park got destroyed, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, like what do we do now? We got to report this shit,
Mhm.
and so they go report it, and then like that's how the Navy is aware for the first time that Luffy is on his way
Yeah.
to going like to reach the Grand Line. And so it becomes, and that's how it becomes important because then it's like, okay, well that's why Smoker is going to go after Luffy like when we go to Logtown. And so
Mhm.
when you saw at the very end like the post credits in the sense where we saw this guy like put a cigar through the wanted poster,
Yeah.
That's Smoker.
Hmm.
He's aware of Luffy now because he has a wanted poster.
Yeah.
So when he comes across him in Logtown, it becomes it becomes a very important situation because that's going to be the first Logia type that Luffy really deals with. And he
Yeah.
doesn't understand that because like Logia types are very rare, but they're very like if you don't have hockey, you can't fight them normally.
Hmm.
So like I digress. The reason why Katie and I really didn't like the end or like the way that they like made their way into Arlong Park and finished it
Yeah.
is because they didn't really give anybody else the spotlight. You remember when we had the episode with like Buggy and like all the people who were in this like the circus tent and
Yeah. Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
scared shitless. The
Hmm.
guy who was like turning the crank or whatever, that was Mayor Boodle. And in the anime, he's not a fucking sniveling fucking coward. He's literally got a spirit and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill those pirates because
Hmm.
I want to protect my town. Like the town is literally like scared, but the mayor is a fucking badass because he's like, I'm gonna go fucking fight them. I don't care. This is my town. And so
Yeah.
like it really takes away the perspective of like having the villagers be strong,
Yeah.
or at least having the leader of the village be a strong character. And they did this all in favor of like really putting the spotlight on both Nami and Luffy.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine to a degree because Nami and Luffy are very much like the main attraction by the end of the season, even in the anime, because it's so important to know that Nami has been holding something in this entire time.
Yeah.
And so like, like when we get to the village, like Kokomi or Konomi Islands, like, and we get to the village and we see the village, and I understand like you can't do like a full on set because that costs a shit ton. So like if they were huts, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. The
Hmm.
fact that they didn't make the villagers as strong and as important as they should have been was very like demeaning. It felt like they really didn't care about the villagers anymore. And the whole point, and this is the big eye opener, Finto. Like in the anime, everybody knows that Nami is doing what she's doing, but they
Yeah.
don't tell her. They do not say a fucking word. They treat her like she's a criminal because they know what she's doing. They know that she's trying to buy them out. They know that like so they're biding their time. They're biting their tongues. They're really waiting because they believe in Nami. And that's the whole point is that they fucking believe in Nami.
Yeah.
Like and they make the villagers such assholes towards Nami in the live action, which is so fucking annoying because it's like these guys love Nami. What are you talking about?
Hmm.
Like even the sister is aware of what Nami is going through, and she still acts like a fucking dick because they didn't make it apparent that they know her that what she's doing. But it's because they didn't
But that
write
was
it that way.
yeah. Well, didn't they write it that no one knew she did the whole thing in secret, and then it's like, oh shit, you were actually doing this for us, and that's why there's like the turn at the end. Like the girl with the blue hair even says like, shit, I didn't know you were doing any of this.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But like that's not what happened in the anime, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
Like to me, it feels sloppy because it's
Mm.
like, how do you not know what Nami's doing? You should see her like going through the area every now and then. Like you should know that like she's going to her like her old house. Will Belmir was there, and oh, I gotta fucking say, Belmir was the most disappointing fucking character in the flashback I have ever seen because she was made to be a sniveling coward, and she's like in the fucking anime, she's a fucking badass marine. Like she like they only show her for a bit, but she's a badass. Like she's running in there gunning and like things are going crazy. And then like when Arlong shows up, she's cooking dinner. And the two kids like Nami and oh my god, I forgot her name. Basically they're away. They're in the town and
Mm.
Arlong is going to collect the debts. And so Arlong knocks on the door and Belmir's like, just a minute. And so he tries to open the door, and then she fucking kicks her way, gets on top of him, and has a gun right to his head. He's like, who the fuck are you? Basically. And it's just like this fucking strong moment of like, goddamn, like Belmir's a fucking badass. And so like Arlong doesn't care because like he just chomps on the rifle and overpowers her because he's a fishman, and fishmen
Mm.
are like 10 times stronger than humans.
Yeah.
And the idea behind Belmir and Nami and God, I forgot her fucking name. Um between Belmir and the kids is the fact that like if the villagers shut Nami and the kids up, like
Hmm.
and don't say a word and say that Bellamere is the only person that lives in this house and that she just was going to have company because the mayor goes and he goes or the security officer he's like I was coming by for dinner, like we were going to bring people over, we were going to like basically making excuses for her, and so
Hmm.
like it gives this perspective the village is willing to protect everyone, and so if Nami and like if Belmir's kids just shut up, Nojiko, that's her name. If Nami and Nojiko could just shut up for a second and not say anything and they pay out Arlong, they're good.
Hmm.
But Belmir can't let that go because they initially had a fight and Nami ran into the village because she was crying
Hmm.
because Belmir said like so I think Belmir in the anime from what I remember said like I wish I like well I wish I didn't have kids. And it's like and it's so devastating because Nami's like well fuck you then. I wish you weren't my mom. And it's like it's all these emotions that come in and it's like so important to the line because then you understand like how important it is for that moment where Belmir's like those actually I do have two kids. Their names are Nami and Ojiko. Basically killing herself in the sense.
Yeah.
Use the money that I have, pay for those two because it was 50K for a kid, 100K for an adult. And in that same position, she says I love you and then she's gone. And Arlong forcefully takes Nami to his park because they find the treasure maps. They forcefully take her and
Hmm.
they force her to make charts. And then he promises her, if you do this and you can save up money, maybe one day you can buy the village and buy your freedom. And so they give her money and she because she's a poor person and because she loves money, she took the deal. But she did it with good intention. And so she
Yeah.
goes into the village and the villagers are like, "What the fuck happened, Nami? What the fuck are you doing here?" Like, and they see the tattoo on her arm, and they're like, "Are you insane? Did you join the Arlong Pride?" It's like, and then she's like, "Look, I have all this money.
Hmm.
We don't have to live in in poverty anymore." And it's just like it's such an important point because it's like we could live now,
Yeah.
and the villagers hate her for that. But then they find out later that she's doing it because they're like she's paying off Arlong.
Yeah.
She's gonna pay them off.
The live action was so different, bro.
It's so fucking
It's
different.
so
It's
different.
so
Yeah.
fucking insane. But
Yeah.
like that's the point. Like you know that scene at the very like in the at the nighttime where Nami finds out everything that's going on. Arlong is going to destroy the town, and like Nami can't do a single thing. So she's in the dirt and she's like fucking going nuts and she pulls out the knife and like that part was pretty one to one. She pulls out the
Mhm.
knife
Yeah,
and
I saw the anime
she
version of
starts
it.
shouting
Stabbing
Arlong and
herself.
stabbing her and
Yeah, that was cool.
but like I needed more enthusiasm, man. I needed her to
Mhm.
cry. I needed her to fucking like sob and show me like how angry she is at the fact that like this person that she thought was going to be paid off and leave them the fuck alone ruined
Mm.
her life basically.
Yeah.
And
I
so
I
like
could have
she's
I could have told you straight away that he was never gonna fucking keep that promise.
no,
Like,
of
no
course not.
way, like, no
Yeah.
way. And that's why
And
he gives her such a stupid amount. Like, what does he say? Like 10 million coin or
it's
something. Like, it's a
yeah, it's
crazy
like
amount of
10
money.
million.
Like something stupid. Like, and it's like, get me that, and you've got your freedom. And she goes and does it, and it's like, you thought you were
Yeah,
getting your freedom? It's like, obviously not.
right. And so
Yeah,
like that's the thing. It's like the Arlong Park situation between Nozumi and Arlong, like those two, like the Navy soldier and Arlong, that actually happens because
yeah,
you don't see it or you don't hear the conversation, but clearly Nami's almost done paying it off, and so he gives Nozumi like the tip,
yeah.
and yeah, 100 million bear. So
Thank you, Andre.
I appreciate that, Andre. And so like that actually happened as well. Like but it was during the day. Like they went to go investigate and they found the loot, and she's just pissed. And then, but in the anime, this is what's different. In the anime, they find out, like the villagers find out that Nami got her shit stolen from the Navy because the Navy found out that like it was stolen goods, so they confiscated it. So the villagers, knowing what Nami was going to do, they get pissed and they're like, fuck this shit. We're gonna go kill Arlong right now. We're gonna go fight it. So they grab their pitchforks, they grab their shovels, they grab fire like torches and shit, and they're
Yeah,
like, "Let's go." And this is the part that's so deviated. Nami is like, "What are you guys doing? Stop! It's fine. Like it'll be fine. I could just get more money. It's fine." And they're like, "Nami, we're tired. It's either we fight to the death or we win and
mm,
survive. But we gotta go. We're tired of this. It's over." And Nami's like, "No, wait, please wait." And that's the point. That's why she's so fucking like crazy at that point, because she's feels defeated. And that's what I wanted, man. That's what I wanted. I wanted the villagers to show how strong they were, like towards like the ambition of wanting to have them freed of Arlong,
yeah,
because it was so important to Nami that nobody got hurt. And now they're all pushing themselves to go get hurt because they love Nami for what
yeah.
she tried to do. And nobody in the live action fucking loves Nami except for the crew. And it's so fucking infuriating.
I think they do at the end though, right? When they all find
Yeah,
out
but
like why the sacrifice she made. I think the town turned back in her
right, but
favor.
it's
Like,
just like it's this last minute bullshit that I think is like just like, oh shit, we forgot to write that like she did this. So like let's make it so
yeah,
that the villagers get told that this happened. Like
yeah.
like why
It made
even?
it
Why
made it
even
made
tell them?
it made sense to me, but again, it's I don't know the other way. So
Right.
the way I watched it, it made sense. So as a newbie, I thought it worked fine. Obviously
Yeah.
you know a better way, but again, I thought it
It's
worked fine.
it's just like, and here's the thing, man. It's like I looked up and I wanted to know exactly what Oda thought about it. And Oda actually is not happy with the fact that they deviated so much from a lot of different things that happened in the anime compared to the live action. We've seen
Mm,
The Last of Us. And I'll tell you this, man, and you and I can both you can I both can agree on this. The way that David is introduced in the game and in the live action is different. But
mm.
the way that they end it is still the same.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still the same. So like, why couldn't they do that for the live action? They
Yeah,
had like
I'm very curious, right? Because obviously the first season has, I think it's now officially like the best show on Netflix, like
and I'm
numbers
happy for them
wise
for
and
that.
everything. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Um, so I don't know if that now has a lot of power when it comes to going to Netflix and saying like, look, let's pump the brakes a little bit now. We don't need to maybe jump as far forward as we have been. Maybe we could start adding some more shit now because they know that they've got a winner. So, I think I saw tweets saying that there's going to be 6 seasons. I've seen some people talking about a potential rumor of 12 seasons. I think even 6 is a bit of a stretch when it comes to Netflix. I don't think Netflix have I think the longest running show on Netflix is actually Stranger Things, and I think that's about to air the 5th season. I think they're working on the 5th season, which they've said is the last season, and that feels like they've gone over.
Right.
So even the fact that this could potentially run for 6 seasons, it would become the longest running show on Netflix. Are they gonna do it for 12? I think it would be great. You get to see a lot more adapted into
Yeah.
live action and done properly, and you can slow down a bit. But I don't know if Netflix are going to be that invested in it for 12, probably realistically, the next 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think this show, I don't think it's going to be like network TV, like the CW, where they can, do a new series of a show every year. So, if you're watching 8 seasons of The Flash, it runs for 8 years, or like 15, like the Supernatural show went for like 15 years, 15 seasons, so I don't think it's the same thing. I think it Netflix do things differently. Like, they're going to shoot
Right.
the whole thing first. It's not like they're going to shoot the first 3 episodes and then while the first three are airing, they're going to be still working on it. Like, it's not going to work like that. And
Right.
now with all the strikes, they've said that the second season is written and they could start shooting tomorrow, but they have to wait for the strikes. So, you know what I mean? You're going to probably get delayed by a year for that one. So, you're adding another year on to the end. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I would love to see this show keep going. Like this. I love Zorro. I love Sanji. I want to see these characters develop even more. But again, I don't know how. I don't know how much they're actually going to do. Like, they're going to delve into it. I don't know how far they're actually going to go. Like, things are looking fantastic for them right now, but like people could have lost interest in the show by season three. Like, all they have to do is have one bad season, and Netflix will cancel them straight away. They won't even think about it. You know what I mean? Um, that show, that superhero show that Netflix did, I can't remember the name of it. Jupiter Rising or some shit. Well, I can't even remember the name of it.
Oh,
But
I think I remember that.
I watched it and it was fucking brilliant. I loved it. Like, me and my girlfriend watched it and we thought it was fucking amazing, but nobody watched it. So before it, I think they canceled it within a week. Like, they didn't even give people a chance. They just saw the first like week's numbers and they went, "This isn't doing what it needs to do. Gone. See you later." Axed straight away. And I think if they let that show kind of cook for a little bit, a lot of more people would have jumped on it. But like, you announce a cancellation of a show like that, people aren't going to even bother watching it. Like, why would I watch this season? It's just already been cancelled. You know what I mean? So, but where if they didn't announce that cancellation, I think they would have seen a lot more people would have jumped on the bandwagon. I just think because it wasn't, a Batman movie, like, people are like, oh, more superhero shit. Like, forget it. Like, whereas the show, it felt new, it felt kind of refreshing, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I'm sad that they canceled that show. I thought it would have been great, but I pray that One Piece doesn't go down this road as well. I think it's obviously a much more well known like IP or whatever, so I
Yeah.
don't think it will. But as I say, all it takes is for it to have a shit season, and Netflix will fucking pull the plug.
Right. And to be completely honest, man, the budget's gonna have to shoot up. The
Yeah,
budget's gonna have to go fucking insane because um like unless like they're not gonna skip it, but like how much money do you think they're gonna have to put in just to have Tony Chopper in there? Like that's another crew member and he's a fucking reindeer with the human fruit.
love it.
Like
Um,
he can transform and he's a reindeer and he's anthropomorphic basically. Like what are you gonna do, man? Like, you're gonna just put someone like you're gonna put like a human kind of person like all the time and just have them in human
yeah,
form and just never change them? Like that, but that's not Chopper. Chopper like transforms into different things. Like he can go back into his regular like reindeer form. He can do his like human form. He can like do arm point, in which case he grows his like muscles on the sides and like is able to do like strong attacks. He does
mhm,
jumping point, in which case he turn like his legs get longer and he's able to leap into high points. He has like hard point, which is basically like he turns into a ball of fuzz. Like later on he'll even get new forms. Like it's
yeah,
just that's gonna be a fucking nightmare for the CG for the
yeah.
CG crew, for anybody like who does mocap for that. Like I don't like that seems like it's gonna be
Do
the
we
most
know what?
expensive part.
Do we know what the budget of season one was?
I don't know actually. I know that
Because
it
I
was
would
expensive
say,
as fuck.
I would say they have double the budget now for season two. Like, I'd love to know how much money Netflix are actually making off this show, like with it being like the best show, or the number one show or whatever. I'm very curious to how much money that's actually making Netflix.
Yeah, and it's exactly Andre. Imagine Brooke. It's a fucking skeleton, and frankly,
I think
Frankie.
I think they can do anything really now. It's like just, and again, when they're making a show like this where they're going to shoot it all at once, and I think they can probably sit down with a special effects team and actually do this shit. I presume Netflix have a special effects team. They're not going to be as run so thin as the likes of the Marvel team. You know what I mean? Like, the Marvel team need CGI for everything. Same with Star Wars, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, when you have a show, when you have like someone like Netflix, where like a lot of the stuff that they put out, like a lot of their original stuff is all like thriller based, all this sort of stuff. It's all practically shot. Their special effects teams are probably, not too busy. So it's like, let's focus
Right,
on One Piece for the next
right,
4 years. We'll put a full team on it. Then they just do what you got to do. Spend as little money as you can, obviously, but whatever you need to do, just go and do it. Let's make this the
right.
best as we possibly can.
So I pulled it up. Production of One Piece was approximately 17.727 million per episode. So about 138 million for the first season.
That's not bad at all, to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
Marvel are spending more money to make Secret Invasion.
man.
That's a good.
Look how and to be completely honest, how the fuck did they have so much money and did not do shit with it? Like at the
Yeah.
very least, like this is one thing I really liked about One Piece was like at the very least they showed like the backstories for most of the characters very properly. Like most of them had like their backstories done very well. I think like the weakest was Bellemere with Nami. Like, but other than that, everyone had like good CG work.
Yeah.
The scene on the island area where they where they're like Sanji and Zeph are on that rock.
That was
Like
cool.
that was a really cool
I loved
scene.
that. That was a great episode.
Um,
I enjoyed it a lot.
and like Luffy being able to do his like stretches here and there and being able to like show different acrobatics and whatnot. Like I think that they did a pretty good job with like for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, I just, but at the same time, I'm like, that's another thing with with Arlong Park. Where the fuck was Momu? Where the fuck was Hachi? Like, how are you going to introduce those characters later? Those characters are, well, Momu's not super important, but you see him later, and Hachi's like super fucking important because Hachi's the reason why Luffy gets the Celestial Dragons pissed off at him.
Yeah.
And so like like why couldn't you have an octopus fishman? Like you why not? Like you don't
Yeah.
like they didn't have to do the six sword style. Excuse me. They don't have to do the six sword style with Hachi. They could have done it just like two swords and like, oh, I just like to use my hands free or something like that. Just to kind of like not overdo it with like the sword kind of situation. Because I know that's probably a bit harder for them, especially with
Mhm.
Zoro. Like you don't see too much of Zoro using his third sword.
Mhm.
And that's it's a little concerning because it's like that's his whole point.
I think for the live action anyway, I think you need to kind of drip feed that to people because when I saw him, first of all, again, me as a newbie looking at it as never seen Zoro before, when I saw him put that sword in his mouth, I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? You know,
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, this is fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean? So, but it's cool to see it. Like, you know, when you see him like doing the chops and shit, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. But I kind of feel like you need to kind of drip feed that a little more to people who are newbies like myself
Right.
because it's a bit
It,
too out. It's a bit too wild.
you think so? I don't know. Like,
I think it's insane.
well, well, think about it this way, Finto. You haven't seen shit.
Oh,
Like,
exactly, exactly. That's why I'm saying I'm talking to you through virgin eyes, and
oh yeah,
I'm telling you when I saw that I was like, "What the fuck am I watching?" I was like, "This is insane."
there's literally a villain that eats anything. They were
I'm
trying to eat the going Mary.
I'm sure. I'm kind of becoming, and I think this is the point. I think they need to kind of desensitize people into this world where
Right.
shit's
Okay.
just crazy. You know, like if I haven't seen any of like again, I've seen very little of the anime, and again, I've only heard you talking about it. So if I hadn't heard any of that stuff, none of it, and I just watched the show, not even knowing what One Piece was, like think about how many people, because there's a lot of people that would be like that. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people that are out there that see a new show comes up on Netflix, they've never heard about it. They just throw it on. My parents are like that. Like
Mhm.
I give out to them all the time. Like my parents are like, "Oh, we watched this new show that went up on Amazon and we're 4 episodes in and it's absolute dog shit." And I'm like, "Did you look up the IMDb rating? Like, you know, how's the show rating and all?" They're like, "Oh no, we didn't do it." I'm like, they just throw like blindly throw stuff on and just watch
And
it.
I
And
think
you
that's
know,
fine for the most part because then you kind of like get this perspective of like, well, do
yeah,
we like it or are we
exactly.
liking it because people love it?
Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying. Like there, you know, there are movies out there that you know don't score well with the critics, but I like them. You know, and that's fine. And I think there is something to say about that. But again, I think it's I kind of look at it as am I going to waste my time here? I kind of think like there's so much out there now. I think back in the day, yes, fine, watch whatever you want. Don't think about the critics. If you like it, great. But there's so much out there now that I kind of feel like, for me personally, I'm like, I don't want to waste my time watching something that's scoring like a fucking 5 on IMDb when I there's so much 8 and 9s out there. Like, you know, so it's like we just don't have enough time. There's so much content to watch that it's like I need to spend my time doing stuff like watching stuff that I know is going to be good. You know,
Right.
that's the way I personally look at it. My parents have all the time in the world, like you know what I mean, like so they can kind of just sit down every evening and just start a new adventure. And if it's shit after 4 episodes, they're just like, yeah, whatever, we tried it, it's shit. On to the next.
Can you imagine if we lived in a world where things were seasonal, just like in video games and like
Yeah,
TV shows, where like if you missed the first season of movies in 1980 something, guess what?
yeah,
They're fucking gone. Like,
Yeah.
imagine how fucking crazy that would be. But at the same time, like, imagine how innovative like new movies and new episodes and new like seasons would be because you don't have the previous material anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's a
to me,
wild
that
idea.
would be like that. Like, it'd be cool, but like, I get it. Like, dude, I don't know. I don't know if I want to live in a world where I couldn't watch like the Terminator series again, or if I couldn't,
Yeah,
the Star
yeah.
Wars series, like the Star Wars series would get hit. Like that.
Mhm.
That's some scary shit because like you don't want to deal with that. But like, I get it. At the same time, like we are living in a world where we have so much information now, and
Yeah.
it's fucking around like with us in terms
Yeah.
of like us being able to appreciate movies nowadays and
True,
shows
true.
because
Like
there's so many
again,
different things.
I will never myself let like the likes of IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, especially not Rotten Tomatoes. I trust IMDb a lot more than I trust Rotten Tomatoes, but I don't let them actually like judge how I see a project. Like I do want to watch something for myself, and I make my own opinion of it. Like there's plenty of superhero movies or whatever you want to like. You can use anything like horror movies, for example. There's a lot of horror movies that are rated very low by the critics. Like they get
Right.
fives and sixes or whatever. And I think they're great. I love them. Like the Conjuring movies, like for example, like I love those movies. I don't think there's a Conjuring movie that scores over an eight. You know what I mean? Like it's just the genre. It's just the way it is. Like slasher, teen horror movies, like Scream and all this sort of stuff. I love all that shit. But like, I'm never like I'll always watch them. Like I won't go and see like, say the new Scream 6 or whatever it is has like a 5 on IMDb. Like I'm still gonna watch it. Like I don't care if the critics didn't like it. And like, it's the same with Star Wars, it's the same with Marvel, you know, even like the Aquaman movie that's coming out in December, like the trailer came out this week. A lot of people are like shitting on it, like, oh, the movie's gonna be terrible, blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't I'm still gonna go see it because I'm a DC fan. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
I'll make my own opinion of it. Obviously, whispers that we've heard from behind the scenes that like there's people walking out of free screenings of the movie because it's that bad. I'm like,
That's
I'm
bad.
yeah, that is bad, of course, but I'm still gonna make my own assumptions on it. Like, you know,
Right.
I'll do. I didn't really even like the first one. I saw it once. I'll never watch it again, but I'll still go see the second one. You
Mhm.
know, because I'm a DC fan. I like DC. Um, Chillin says the trailer was ass. I thought, story wise, I'm like, yeah, whatever. It kind of looks just you know, simple fucking sequel where it's like, Manta comes back and he's got his own trident now and whatever, like, an evil trident or some shit. Like it kind of looks like a mixture of Pirates of the Caribbean or some shit, like meets like some other thing, like, like where he's like his trident's like bringing back zombies or some crap. Like the story doesn't look great. I think, funnily enough, though, I think the CGI looks a lot better than the shit that Marvel's been putting out for the last 2 years. Like, like
Sad. So
it's kind of
sad.
like, and that's sad to say, but like, honestly, I truly believe that. Like, I think like this movie looks better than anything in Phase 5 so far.
Oh, yeah,
It's like,
well, DC has a great spot right now to just push the shit out of all their content and try to make it as good as possible because right now
yeah,
people aren't enjoying the shows for Marvel. And so if DC is coming out with good movies, then it goes to show like, okay, so it's just the writers.
yeah.
But if it's
I think that
just
this movie's gonna like the funny thing about this movie is that it's gonna be a bad movie. It's not gonna be a good movie, right? But I think it'll still be a box office success just from Jason Momoa alone. Like you got to think like this looks like the first movie in every aspect. You know what I mean? Like it visually looks the same. The story's probably going to be quite similar. Like like you're going into a movie like that, you should know what to expect. But I think a lot of people are just gonna because women love Jason Momoa. Like they're gonna go, they want to see him shirtless and blah blah blah. But I think the movie, funnily enough, like while it's probably going to be a piece of shit, it's still probably going to make 600 or 700 million in the box office. Like that's just the way it's going to be,
it's kind
And
of fucked.
it is
It's
like
really fucked.
The first one did over 1 billion, and like the movie was terrible, like really bad film. Like I actually like there was parts of it I actively hated in that film, and I was just like, oh, I'm never watching this again. And I watched it once, and that was it. I'll never watch it again. But yeah, like what Chillin says here in the chat is like very true as well. I don't really want to get stuck on DC. We gotta kind of gotta end this soon. But James Gunn completely destroyed any remaining films that were going to come out this year. Like we're all like the Flash was ruined from it. Basically, when he announced that the universe was going to change, like the extended universe was going to end, and DCU was taken over, it just made all of these movies absolutely irrelevant. And he shouldn't have done that. He could have announced his DCU the day after this came out in cinema or whatever, or after the first weekend. The Flash would have made more money, and people would have been more excited about seeing Ben Affleck back and blah blah blah. Anyone who listens to this knows my opinion on all this. Like I've talked about this for so long, like, but James Gunn did a stupid thing, like, and he should not have announced that rebrand or reboot or soft reboot or whatever the fuck you want to call it, whatever he's deciding to do.
You ruined Blue Beetle, man. Like Blue Beetle
ruined everything.
Blue Beetle's barely making like over the budget right now.
Flash lost money. Blue Beetle, if they're lucky, broke even. I don't even think they did.
They're at about 120.
120 million globally.
Yeah, and the budget was
horrendous.
104.
That's horrendous, bro.
Yeah,
because there was because you got to think about it as well. They need to make like double the budget to break even. If even probably more, because you only get at best they only get half the money back, and then Europe, I think they lose even more. They only get like 30% of the money back from all the box office. So you need to make at least double, and then you got to put in like all the marketing shit on top of that. So they need to make a lot of money. Like for a movie that's cost them 100 million, they probably need to make 300 million just to be kind of safe.
Like on the good side,
like or like close to billion. The Flash is Warner Brothers' biggest flop in terms of loss ever. Yeah, and there's a lot that went into that. Again, I don't really want to get hung up on it because we're close to the hour and a half. We got to end soon, but yeah, look, there's the Ezra Miller fucking shit, and then all the bad CGI when that hit the internet very early on. That kind of ruined things. So like if you had people didn't want to go for Ezra, they didn't want to go because they heard the CGI was absolutely awful. And then James Gunn's news, again, a third fucking nail in the coffin. What do you expect? Like people that, and like going to the cinema, I don't know what it's like for you over there, but like for me now, it's like $70 to go out to the cinema, just me and her, like, just to get seats to watch the film and some food at the cinema, like, popcorn or nachos or whatever. Like that's a $70 trip. Like, and if you want to make a proper date night out of it, you might go for dinner after or before. Like you're looking at like a date night of $150 to go see a fucking film. And if you hear like, I'm a diehard, so I haven't missed a superhero movie in the cinema like all the way back to like X-Men and all. I was watching all them on the big screen, everything, like, I don't miss any of them. And that's why I'll go see Aquaman 2, because I want to keep my streak going. But, if I was just a normal fan or a normie or whatever, like I wouldn't be going to see any of this shit, bro. Like I'd just be waiting for the fucking torrents to go up and download it for free. Or, if it goes up on Netflix, fingers crossed, or if it goes up on Amazon, I'll watch it then. Like, like we don't have HBO Max over here. So we can't wait for Warner Brothers to release it digitally and, watch it and pay for a subscription. Right. So if I want to watch The Flash, I got to illegally download it, or that I got to buy it, and I'm not buying it. I'm not going to Apple or Amazon or one of these like streaming services and actually paying like full price for it. I actually, the last thing I bought was I bought Across the Spider-Verse on digital. It was like $22, and I was like, I'm buying this because I want to see it full 5.1 and full 4K. Like I want to see it the best way it can be presented. But I'm never going to spend money on a DC movie like that, especially one of these. Like if they brought out a really good movie, I loved the Zack Snyder's Justice League. But again, it's not. I don't have HBO, so I'm fucking just torrenting it. I love you, Zach. I'm sorry I torrented it, Zach, but I have no other option. On that beautiful note, I'm going to call it for the week. Guys, next week we're going to be back. We're going to be talking about Ahsoka episode 6 and any other nerdy news from the week. Hopefully we'll have a bit more to talk about other than just Star Wars. I feel like we're just a Star Wars only podcast lately. But that's just, we deal the cards we've been dealt, and the content right now is basically just Star Wars. I didn't think we were going to be talking any One Piece tonight, so it was actually nice to talk a little bit of One Piece as well. So that was fun. But yeah, look, guys, we'll be back with episode 6. Hopefully we've got some Ezra stuff to talk about, some Thrawn stuff to talk about next week. But look, time will tell. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for anybody who's listening to us on any of the podcasting apps. Head over to our YouTube, give us a subscription over there. You can participate in future podcasts if you want in the chat. And anybody who's watching us on a replay here, smash the like button, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. See you next week, guys. Bye. Bye-bye.